Thanks everybody for coming tonight. We've already called the meeting to order. We have is there any change on the agenda? No change on the agenda, so we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance from the students from Fremont Middle School.
All right, guys.
All right, stand for the pledge. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up.
Okay, ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job. It was nice to have you guys here. Thank you. You did an awesome job. Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, so moving on to communications and celebrations. Communications from patrons.
That's just there as a link for reference, Sherman.
So the 5A Theater District champions in high school. Principal Grace.
Yeah, this is what I love to do is be able to bring great people, great teachers, and champions to you. I know when I took over at the high school, Mr. Rippey is now my third theater teacher. Theater was a half-time position. It was a couple kids here and there, and we did some plays, but since we've had Mr. Rippey, it's now a full-time position, a full-time program. There's a dual credit tied to it. And now there are 2 district championships and a pretty good state championship, and even a bigger surprise he's going to share with you guys. So,
yeah, a little bit more about numbers specifically, because I like some data. I'm in the arts, not all data. But some data is that when I first started, there were 16 advanced acting students. We're now 30. We've doubled that, and it has created an opportunity for us to grow in both our academic and in our co-curricular activity as well. And part of that is this is the first year that we've had 2 district theater champions, which is a huge, huge thing for Kuna. I went to Kuna, I did the theater program here. It's hard to be a district champion. And we also had a runner-up. From that, we had 11 students that qualified for state, which is the most we've ever had. 4 made the semifinals, 1 made finals. And that's great. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to let one of our semifinalists from state, senior Cora Abercrombie, do some of her performance that she did at state for you in solo musical theater. There are 14 categories that you do at state and at districts. They were all double entered at districts, which means they had to do 2 events over 6 sessions. So they did 6 performances in 1 day. It is stunning the amount of effort they put into it, the amount of resilience they have, the amount of imaginative problem solving they have when they have to do 6 performances in a day. And so I'm going to let her do a performance, and then I'm going to talk to you just a little bit at the end, and then we'll be out of here.
Hello.
You can explain what slating is.
Okay, I'm going to slate for you guys. It's basically what we do to introduce ourselves when we are performing at districts. So, for instance, it depends on what category you're in. So I'm in solo musical theater, which means I would say SMT and then my number. As we would say at districts, can I please have a sound check? All right. My name is Cora Abercrombie. I am SMT 319, and I will be performing Waitress. It's not simple to say. Most days I don't recognize me. These shoes, this apron, that place and its patrons have taken more than I gave them. It's not easy to know I'm not anything like I used to be, although it's true I was never attention sweet sin. I still remember that. She's imperfect, but she tries. She is good, but she lies. She is hard on herself. She is broken and honest for help. She is messy, but she's kind. She is lonely most of the time. She is honest, mixed up and baked in a beautiful pie. She is gone, but she used to be mine. And it's not what I asked for. Sometimes life just slips in through a back door and carves out a person and makes you believe it's all true. But now I've got you, and you're not what I asked for. If I'm honest, I know I would give it all back for a chance to start over and rewrite an ending or two. For the girl that I knew was reckless just enough, who gets hurt, but who learns how to toughen up when she's bruised and gets used by a man who can't love. And then she'll get stuck and be scared of a life that's inside her, growing stronger each day, till it finally reminds her to fight just a little, to bring back the fire in her eyes that's been gone but used to be mine. Oh, used to be mine. She is messy, but she's kind. She is lonely most of the time. She is always mixed up and baked in beautiful pie. She is gone, but she used to be mine.
Woo! I should have let her go because I have to follow it with me. That was a bad planning. I didn't realize that halfway through. The really cool thing that's going to happen for us now is that because of some of our musical theater things that we've started to increase at the high school through our theater program, we've actually been invited to participate in the first ever Idaho Theater Area Awards, which is taking place at the Morrison Center. And from that, we end up being associated with what's called the Jimmy Awards, which is a national awards for musical theater. And some of our students may have an opportunity to go to New York and participate in professional development and things like that through the professional theater training program through the Jimmy Awards. And because of that, some of that also we get to do tomorrow. Cora is going to work with the actors that are visiting from Hamilton. They're gonna work with her to do that. So part of that is also encompassed in that. Well, trustees, Chairman Grant, Superintendent Johnson, thank you for your time.
Good job, Cora. Moving on to the Kuna Award, Superintendent Johnson.
Yes, Chairman and trustees, as you know, every month we come before you with our Kuna Awards. And soon I'll get a second to have it linked up here. This month it is obvious to all of us who this month's award winner should be. Chairman and trustees, our Kuna Award winner this month is trustee Sally MacArthur. And I think you can see from that video of her 8 years of service, one of the things she told me when I first met her was that she wanted to be an example to her kids, and she has done that. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, Sally, it's not done yet. I talked to a lot of people and talked about to have things that they had to say about you. One of the things that was first off of several people's lips were that you're always thinking about us and others because you always bring us snacks. It's not so much what you bring, but the fact that you're thinking about us that we appreciate. We appreciate the fact that I kind of have a love-hate relationship with all your questions because somebody can't get anything else in, but we love that you always are asking questions and making sure we have all the information we can before you make decisions, and kids were always first for you. One of the things that I remember most about you is that when I was first elected, we went straight away to Coeur d'Alene for our convention. And I remember we were driving in the car and you were telling me that one of your favorite holiday movies is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And then you started going through the act of when his seatbelt was stuck. And I have not laughed so hard. Seriously, I have loved your friendship and I've loved that you've been my roommate at convention, and we're going to miss you.
So they asked me to write a letter, but it didn't make it in here, so I'll just go ahead and read it. How's that sound? What a joy and privilege it's been to serve with Trustee MacArthur these past 5 years. She has always come prepared to each board meeting, ready to tackle each issue. Her concerns and questions have always been spot on, and with each vote, she has put the children and community of Kuna first. I admire her honesty on each subject we have discussed and the respect she has shown to each of her fellow board members, even including me. She has never been afraid to ask questions to help her make a decision or to better understand an issue. From the first time I met Sally, I've enjoyed her sense of humor. You make me laugh. I will miss all the great times we had at our conferences. She made sure we all had plenty to eat. And she taught me how to collect swag. And I have to tell you, nobody does it better than you, Sally. I'm so glad to have served with Sally, but most of all, I'm proud to call you my friend. The students and community here in Kuna are better because you served as our trustee. Congrats, Sally, on your Kuna Way Award. You definitely deserve it. And it's been fun to serve with you. So,
Thank you.
For the longest time, I got to sit right next to Sally, and she got to put up with my questions when I started. Like the first year when I didn't really know what was going on, I was whispering in her ear all the time, so half the time she couldn't listen. And she put up with me and welcomed me in, and I appreciate that. And then also, I always knew that Sally was gonna ask the tough questions and get to the bottom of things and continue to get to the bottom of things and make sure we held, people accountable and situations accountable and get to the bottom of it. So just want to say thank you for your efforts and your time.
Thanks. I don't know if it's good to be last or first on something like this, but most of what I would say has already been said. But it's been a great thing to sit next to you for the last 2.5 years, and I've appreciated your friendship. Thanks.
All right.
thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so moving right along to the superintendent's report.
I'll get down to business, so no more tears. How's that? Some celebrations continuing, I guess I would say. The last couple meetings, we talked about our elementary intervention process, what we're doing to help our students as a result of the pandemic. I'm going to fast forward a little bit here up to the high school and what they're doing to help the students as a result of kind of being in a strange schedule last year and then lots of absences over the last year and a half. You were all on the board when we put in place an open campus at Kuna High School, and a part of that plan was students earn that, and then if they were behind or needed additional support, that they spent some of that time during lunch to go to an intervention. Brian Graves has added to that by using some of our ESSER money to hire some additional support for students during the day, in addition to lunch. So I'm just going to have us play the video, and it'll speak for itself because we have some students who can talk about the impact of this change.
COVID has disrupted our lives and the education of our students. Helping high school students return to routines and strong work habits is key to ensuring that they're on target to succeed in classes and graduate, and also to be future ready. In this report, high school coordinator Brian Graves shares how Kuna and Swan Falls high school teachers and staff are supporting students in closing learning gaps through academic support classes, and how new federal funds are being leveraged to positively address student behaviors and keep students focused on success.
Being a former elementary teacher as well as an elementary school, have this ability to have for us, we have taken more about school in terms of attendance, being present, taking notes, being organized, having an A-day folder, a B-day folder, this in the house that we how to balance it. I've got a paper due, I've got a project due, I've got, my weight training program, all, having multiple things to do at once. So it was becoming a student again. Well, we use GPA as our main target. We've had some parent requests, we've had some counselor requests, but for the most part, it was GPA. We really looked at that 2.0 GPA. Really stayed away from our freshmen because they obviously came in without needing it. Seniors are a little trickier too because a senior that's struggling typically needs all the credits they have. So we may have a senior that fits in their schedule, but for the most part, we really focus on our sophomores and juniors. Instead of taking 8 classes, maybe instead of taking an art, one extra PE or an extra CT class, now we put you on call academic intervention. And that academic intervention still is a credit, it's a pass-fail credit. So it's just that ability to, hey, schools struggle, so instead of 8 classes in schools, it's 7 classes. And then use that time. And in that time, there's not papers due for that class. They may do a quick current event, and they may do a check-in. So this is all about personal connection and motivation. We have 8 different people that have one part. So it's like, by having different people, I can fit you with a person, a personality, a style that works better for that student. Maybe if you're struggling in math, I can use the math teacher as academic intervention. If it's an academic need, if you're an athlete, maybe you match better with one of our PE teachers. So we were able to spread it out. So let's talk, I love that you're a junior, so let's talk a little bit about the freshman year, the first year that was affected by COVID.
Mm-hmm.
The sophomore year, how it was crazy between this year, and maybe how a couple of those years were hard, like this year. You're doing awesome.
Yeah, so I finally realized how what I want to do with my life, what I want to be in the future, and I realized I can't just not be good at school, because that's not good. And I need good grades to go to the college I want, so I just turned everything around.
Can you talk a little bit about this Madison's class?
Oh, I really like it. It's, you can learn anything you want, so she gives you all the time to do whatever. She helps you with whatever you need. And it's just good for catching up on missing work and just doing what you need to do.
So this year, we got to go back to doing all your classes. How was that?
Actually, it's been really successful because that summer I kind of hit me okay, so if I don't try in school, maybe I won't make it to trade school or college that I really want to go. So then I started buckling down and getting work done that day it was due. I mean, yeah, sometimes I still struggle with it, but I still get it done.
So you also have academic intervention this year.
Yeah.
How is that helping you personally positive?
So some positives is you get extra time and to be doing your work by yourself. What was last year like?
Last year was really hard just to stay on top of work when you didn't get to see your teachers very often and be able to communicate.
Right. So what are some things, because you're doing awesome. Hopefully you do. But what are some things that are working this year?
Doing staying on top of everything and making sure I do the work in class too and not just goof off.
One of your classes is called academic intervention. Talk about maybe why that class is helpful.
It's helpful because it's a place where I can get my work done and have someone who's there who knows what how to help.
We'll talk a little bit about this.
I think the pandemic was pretty hard, just going hybrid, trying to learn over the computer, it's not my thing. I'm at home, I get distracted with these things. I do better with help in person, and then I kind of listen more and kind of focus on them.
So one of the things different this year is one of your classes is academic support. So talk about it. Is that class helpful?
Yeah, I think it's helpful because when I get behind, normally I have to do it at home, I have to work at home, so having that class helps. I go in there, work on classes what I need to do, she helps me with everything. That's not really a struggle.
By being able to act another way, those we're able to do that proactive piece about it, what's the root of the problem is causing this, and then helping them bounce back and maybe instead of, hey, you're not supposed to fight at school, the reason, like get some reason why what's going on between you and that person, and then correcting the behaviors, and then making a plan for the next time we can map out, we can fix that. They're also doing a lot of our academic check-ins, and then just some just check-ins. Hey, how are you doing? Success. Just with the students, if you struggle academically, and it's maybe you're smart, but you're having struggle with friends and behaviors, and then once we get that straightened out, then academics are easy. Both of them are very great communicators. They're out and about. They're sleeping every lunch, bus. They're everywhere.
Our mission is to serve Kuna High School and Swan Falls High School students with supports to allow them to be successful.
Yeah, ultimately to give high schoolers the best experience that we can.
What we're seeing with student behaviors this year, it's multifaceted. We're seeing students coming from a year of break. We're having students coming from having over a year of different educational experiences. We're having new families move into the community. We're having families uprooted from their homes, rising house costs. Not everyone has jobs right now. So we're seeing just a big onion of layers of complex issues that ultimately affect student behaviors.
And adolescence as it is a hard enough age. I feel like with COVID and the pandemic and all the turmoil that surrounds adolescents right now, they're going through an extremely impactful age in their life. I mean, you already make decisions in your high school years that impact your life 5, 10, 15 years down the road. But now compound that with COVID, with the turmoil that's going on in the United States. There's just a lot going on in these kids' lives. And so our job is to be a positive person in their lives.
I think every day we have a success. Greg and I will go to each other and high five at the end of the day, whether it's a student getting placed in some support system that they ultimately need, whether it's some mental health resources, whether it's connecting with a parent who has been really difficult to connect with, and we hear a thank you out of them, or we get a call from them for help. And so those are wins for me. And of course, we have great successes every day with the 99% of the student body that just are successful without supports.
And they feel safe.
Thank you, trustees. Next month, we'll highlight what our intervention looks like at our middle schools.
I just have a quick question. So do those interventionists go out to the people, or do the students come to them, or is it set up? How's it set up exactly? How are you using, and I know you're using ESA's funds for that, right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
For me, at like the elementary level, I wasn't able to just pick a person and then, so what we did is we had a period every single, so 1 through 8. So now it fits into the kids' schedule. So the kids actually come to them 7th period, 5th period, depends on when it fits in their schedule. We're starting to get where the kids will go to them also for intervention, and then they'll go after school because they've kind of built that security.
so right now they're just building bridges to the kids type of thing.
Yeah, it's
And then you're hoping to make it more of a one-on-one type thing with them?
I don't know if it'll ever become that one-on-one.
See,
just
I'm
timing
a
wise.
elementary, so
Yeah,
I'm thinking
absolutely.
one-on-one.
Yeah, so you'll see about 15 of them will go each period to that. So that's, instead of another class, they'll go to their academic intervention. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just was wondering more, I didn't see the specifics of how they were being used, so thank you.
Yeah, right in our bill schedule.
In elementary, we tend to be reading and math, but in high
Right.
school, it could be
It sounds
social
like
studies,
behavior.
science, yeah, behaviors,
That's what it sounds like.
all
Yeah,
those
sometimes
things.
we gotta trip them in there to learn.
You do at the elementary level too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Moving right along, update on the career and technology opportunities for students.
Yeah, so again, I get to just come up and quickly introduce. I know we've brought like Tracy in to talk about some updates on activities. We brought Mr. Beamer to talk about some safety. So now I'm bringing you Mr. Wingfield, and he's gonna give his career and technical report for this school year so far and last year.
Just zoom out here. There you go. So I can see the whole page.
That's as zoomed out as it's gonna do, I think. There you go.
There you go. Now
A little bit larger.
One of the trust, or Chairman Grant, trustees, one of the things that I've been looking for is sort of a methodology to look at how all of our programs are moving, progressing, as well as to be able to provide some information that we can post online and otherwise in other locations for all of our CTE areas. And so a couple years ago, I got it in my brain that what I would start doing is working on an annual report to deliver to you guys each year about where our programs are. And so I appreciate the opportunity to come kind of talk to you a little bit. There are a lot of similarities in terms of the academic side, in terms of how we assess and look at students and their successes and the types of things that are there. You're very familiar with ISAT assessments and those sorts of things. And so this is an opportunity for you, for me to kind of talk to you a little bit about how the overall structure is kind of put together, the types of assessments that are there, and hopefully get some feedback from you in terms of how and what this might look like. So this is the 2021 annual report. And highlight some pictures of in the upper left. Those are EMT students last year out working on students. First year for freshman students in vehicle maintenance at Swamp Falls. A couple of students that are participating in the construction combine last May down in Kuna. And then our FFA leadership group attending a workshop, are the featured pictures in that particular document. I'm going to scroll to the next page. A little bit of description of what's going on there. This paragraph I'm going to highlight right here, which talks a little bit. It says, all CTE programs really have three main components of the work that our CTE staff do. And those are wrapped around high quality instruction connected to industry standards in their CTE area. The second component of that is business and industry partners and feedback in terms of the direction the programs are going. The third part is a career and technical student organization where students can work on leadership, community service, classroom activities, as well as competitions that move through a regional, state, and national competition structure. And the career and technical student organizations that are active within our CTE system are FFA, Connected to Agriculture, BPA, which is Business Professionals of America, FCCLA, which is the Family Community Career Leaders of America, so for family consumer science. Skills USA is relatively new to us. Over the last approximately 5 years, we've started new programs, and we're doing those in both engineering, tech, and trades and industry, and then HOSA, which is our health professions programs that go there. So if you want to scroll to the next page a little bit. So what I started to do was try to put together some things, and hopefully this will give you a feel for the types of assessment structures and how we kind of look at CTE programs and CTE things as a whole. You're going to hear the term program of study. Over the last few years, we've transitioned from mostly cluster programs. We have 19 formal programs of study in our 6 CTE areas. A program of study is a minimum of 5 semesters worth of increasing complexity in a particular area, and you'll see each of those things that are there. So one of the things we track is, last year's 2021 seniors, 100% of our 2021 seniors who completed a CTE program all the way from an intro through some intermediate coursework and a capstone graduated from high school. The second component that's here is all of those seniors who are program completers in all 19 areas take what's called the Workplace Readiness Assessment. That's delivered from the state. It covers 22 areas of common workplace expectations, developed by business and industry folks. 91% of our program completers passed the workplace readiness assessment. We did have 171 program completers in 2021 in those 19 different areas. We also go back every year and track students from the previous year. So we ask all of our staff, for those students who were program completers, to hang on to their names, their Facebook connections, their emails, those kind of things. And we go back and ask students from the previous year what they're doing after graduation. So graduates from 2020 reported a 94% positive placement rate. That's an official term that actually goes all the way to the feds. So positive placement is defined as either they went on to a post-secondary school, they're actively working in the industry associated with the CTE program they went through, they joined the military for future training, so they're ready for that, or they're on some sort of a service learning project. AmeriCorps, Peace Corps would be examples of those, or they're on a mission. So just some overall stats for last year. Again, COVID crazy year where students were literally in class about 50% of the time. In program areas where it's kind of hard to teach welding from the computer you're sitting in front of, right? So some significant impact there, but 347 industry certifications earned during the pandemic. We have 13 dual credit CTE connected courses that are specific to CTE, that kids can tag those with their other core dual credit courses and run from there. And a little over 1,000 CTE dual credit courses, dual credit were earned last year. Below that, there's a little bit of information about CTE funding sources that run from the federal, the state, and a little bit of a total there. So that's the global overall things that connects all of our CTE programs. And then the next slide, we'll kind of walk through these, is really what occurred in each one of those particular areas. So I focused a little bit on the number of industry certifications and what those certifications were in. So last year in the case of ag, we had 56 industry certifications earned, most of those in welding. I use the technical terms, hoping that at some point business and industry partners are looking at that, who recognize what those are, and then we can make some connections with those. Basically, those are stick, MIG, and TIG welding. And we also certified students in OSHA 10 safety certification as well. Ag department had 110 dual credits that were earned, and these are the specific courses specific to ag that were possibilities for students. Other things, the State Division of CTE a little bit that has been working on what they call skill stack, which is really a micro badging where staff can actually say, in this particular area, I think this student has met all of those standards or exceeded those, and they can award skill stack badges. The idea is long-term, the state hopes that business and industry will also access skill stack looking for kids with particular skills. Those skills are actually then tested through a technical skills assessment. Let's scroll down just a little bit. So we talked about programs of study. Officially in ag, we have 3 programs of study: an animal science program that's about 7 semesters long, plant science about 7 semesters long, and welding is 6. That technical skills assessment is tied to content. So this is some of the things that are up here are more the performance, and then this is the content end of things. So those technical skills assessments are given to those capstone students only at the end. So it's really a measurement of everything that they learned within that entire program. Career and Technical Student Organization, so what it is, the number of students that participated in the State Leadership Conference, and the number of students who qualified for nationals. Okay.
Yeah, we got some water for you, Mike.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So the others follow kind of a similar pattern. Would you mind going to the last slide and showing the total numbers of kids that are involved in
You
that?
bet. So each of those, some of those are new and developing courses, so keep going. So those are each of the 6 different areas. What I did on the last page was look a little bit at enrollment numbers for this year. So this is the one bit of information that is associated with fall CTE enrollments as they continue to grow. So you can see the program area. The first column is fall semester enrolled. So I literally went and counted numbers of every student so this is really tails and seats for all 8 class periods in that particular area for all of our programs that's there. The next column is I went back and looked at the number of requests that we had for each of those particular areas back in the spring when we asked kids to ask what they wanted, so they compare how well we did here. So you can see in the case of ag, we had 604 kids that are currently enrolled. We had 638 kids who ask for something in ag. So we missed by basically 34. Now, of course, all of those kids, you had some kids leave, new kids come in and all of that, but a pretty good predictor of what's there. And really then I tried to identify what I considered the trouble spots. Most of these students that we weren't able to fit turned out to be in the manufacturing and welding area for ag. Trades and industry, this is really interesting to me because this is electronics, auto, diesel, and construction. Almost all of these are our 4 newest programs. And basically we don't even have capstone programs or capstone courses in these programs yet. And you can see the number of students that really have just dived into that particular program.
So the concept, if we build it, they will come, is coming true, right?
Yeah.
Our numbers that are of kids that are participating have increased significantly, even though they had some of the same opportunities in other school districts that we were traveling to. So now that it's here, we're seeing more kids, which is what we want.
Is this all Kuna kids or is this part of the Melbourne?
We do have a few Melba students. We have 6 students who are participating from Melba in our new dental assisting program, and 2 in EMT. The travel time and the other things for them is as significant for them as it was for us going someplace else. Some of those students are also initial point students who are also, and that is really our goal, is to continue to increase those that are there. So you can kind of see the numbers. So really, even this last semester, if we looked at, we only missed by, we just only need about 300 more spots for kids.
Yeah. I don't know why that didn't occur to me before, but how much is Initial Point participating in that?
Right now,
a
a handful. We've got some struggles a little bit with their schedule. Is kind of significantly different in terms of the schedule. The other part has been trying to do new stuff, and I don't want to use the COVID excuse. That's the COVID excuse for everything, but how you choreograph some of those things. So it really is a goal that we integrate our alternative students into these programs, either by working on trying to embed some things from CTE literally into the schedule of Initial Point, or by pulling those kids out, similar to what we're doing and moving students back and forth. And going from there.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to the consent agenda. Is there anything that we need to take out of there to talk about? No? Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Oh, I'm sorry. I moved to approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
This time.
All in favor, Joy?
Aye.
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 Motion carries, thank you. Delegations, do we have any delegations?
Yes.
So for delegations, there's not gonna be any decisions being made tonight, but we can give you 3 minutes to speak if you'd like. Drew Campbell? on school safety standards.
Prefer to sit at stand all day. Okay, September or mid-September, first event. Second event is October. My child in 7th grade, she's a girl, was told that she was going to be murdered by her classmate. And she laughed at him and said, "How are you going to do that?" He said, "I'm going to bring a gun to school and shoot you in the face." I thought that was quite severe, but she told the teacher on responsibility at the time, and she said, "Oh, leave him alone," which I didn't like in particular. So the standards would be severe disciplinary standards of any range from a detention, suspensions, out of school suspensions. I would have no ability to know that any of that happened, so I asked my daughter in particular. She's in honor roll, honor society, tested extremely high in the standardized testing, 12th grade reading level, just very bright, very smart. She says, I asked her, "Did you remember him leaving the class that day?" That was a no. I said, the next 2 days, the next period of days? No. And I said, "Are you absolutely sure?" She says, "Yes." I said, "Okay, how many other people witnessed and are aware of these same issues?" And at this point, it's up to 6 girls in her class, all feel extremely unsafe about the situation. I brought this up to the principal, meetings with the vice principal and teacher. They've now quoted my child as the problem in class. The assailant in particular has some sort of special ability with administration, and he's now allowed to wear headphones in class anytime he feels like it, and can walk the halls freely. And in 7th grade, I'm not too worried about statistics of school shooters, but in 2 years, when he goes to high school, the statistics start to spike. So it's a really big issue in particular for me. So I've already taught my children, simple, pay attention, make sure you're always keeping an eye on him, keep your distance, make sure you're good distance from brick walls, make sure you know your exit points, and learn how to zigzag. I shouldn't have to say that to my 7th grader. So the number one thing for any action involving a death threat or action with a weapon, firearm, is an automatic sit down with the SRO. Now this has to happen with both students. So mine, which was the victim, and the assailant. I can't be sure if the SRO did sit down with the assailant, but I am sure for a fact that my child has no memory of a sit down with a police officer at her school. And I said, "You sure?" And she's like, "I'm absolutely sure." She didn't even know the SRO was a female. I was like, "Oh, okay." So I bring these things up to the principal, and he essentially tells me it's not my business because it's not my student, but it is my student in particular. So I just wanted to know from him in particular if there was an incident report or if the SRO had an incident report, because it wouldn't be a police report. That would have criminal action, of course. So it would have to bare minimum of an incident report. I've called so many different times, talked to 3 different police officers, and I have not gotten a call back about that.
Thanks for your time. We're trying to keep it 3 minutes so we can appreciate you coming.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Kuna Middle School.
Okay, so moving on to update on ISBA convention. Vice Chairman Thomas and Trustee Nixon.
Let you start.
Well, I was, 2 years ago, I was elected onto the ISBA Executive Board, and I was vice chair for 2 years. Well, this year I moved up to the Region 3 chair, and consequently, I only got to attend a couple of classes because I was busy with executive board stuff. So I'm actually gonna pass it on to you so that you can report on things that you learned.
Quite a few things, really. Some really good type of things. One of them was, one of the classes I attended was held by the Rigby staff, who've had 2 shootings. Very interesting, different things that they have done in their school district. And I brought some of those things up to Wendy, and I know that you're checking into them. So I thought that was really good. Just some really good things about some of the up and coming things with the new laws from the federal government having to do with gender and those type of issues that we have, and how to look at that. Of course, I'm glad Russ is on our team, but how to look at that from a lawyer standpoint, law standpoint, what we need to look at. And again, a lot of connections made with different school districts, seeing what they use and how they use that. So it was all good, and we can talk about it further, but I really felt overall that I enjoyed each class that I attended. And that once again, learned quite a few things, and I appreciate having our district administrative team there, so as we come out of each class to talk.
Yeah.
And to disseminate, see what we're doing here, what we need to do. And so I thought it was really good. So that's my upbringing on that. So did you want to add anything?
Convention is just always good. There's really not much bad to say. It was not so great last year. We had to do it virtual, but it's always good because you can network with other people and find solutions to problems that maybe they're doing it one way and you're like, oh, that's a great idea. And so I always love to go to convention.
It's good to find out what other districts have struggled with, so we don't have to go there. So that was good. And I attended a lot of the classes done by, and I forget her name, she's the lawyer.
Amy White.
Yeah, I did a lot of Amy White classes, just because how much things are changing with COVID, federal government, Supreme Court, all of those things. That kind of tells us where we're at.
Okay, thank you. Follow up on the proposal to continue to improve school board outreach. Director Westphal.
Good evening. So let's go on to the next slide. So last month, we talked about 2 proposals to expand our outreach. One is a newsletter. So the first one will go out this Monday, and you have your deadlines there. We'll send you the draft on Thursday and get your feedback to us by 8 a.m. Monday, and then we'll get it out the door. Thank you for folks for looking at your bios and getting those back to me. So the other one was a discussion about, if you can just slide, meetings, engaging with the community. So I just captured some of the notes from your conversations in November about different models, how frequently to do it, different models of either listening or a desire to engage in conversations with folks. What we didn't talk a lot about in the next slide is what focus would you like to do? So would you like it to be a targeted focus on the big picture, lots of ideas influencing a strategic direction, or more open-ended? We'll drill down into those really quickly. So the next slide. So that big picture one. So we look at it, information about best practices of effective school boards, is they're listening and engaging with community on issues related to the big picture in your role in a strategic sense. So if we want to go to the next one. We've done this in the district before. You have a history of study circles around specific topics. And so here, you might want to explore a topic about, I've worked with a district where it was, we want to be the best in the Northwest. Well, how would we prove to our community, or what evidence would our community want that we've met that? And so you have a conversation, is it graduation rates? What is it about that? So a conversation like that around a big picture issue. You can see there, folks come, they know what you're gonna talk about. They're interested in the topic you're interested in, it's focused on that. You're gonna use it to inform some work, a vision, a mission, strategic plan, some policy or initiative in the district, and it supports that conversation roundtable. The other model that we listed there would be a focus on open-ended. And you see there's some information about effective boards. It doesn't mean boards don't do this, but it's more open-ended. It's focused on the issues of the day. So as we drill down into what that might look like and some pros and cons, if you go to the next slide, it's similar to kind of delegations and some of the things you've experienced. It's open-ended, so you don't know if someone wants to talk about this topic or another topic. And it's more of listening, because you don't know what the topic's going to be, so conversations can be challenging ahead of time. You're going to need to use those controls, 3 minutes or whatever to keep one person from not dominating the conversation. A lot of the concerns are going to pop up, you're going to send to the administration to deal with like a discipline issue or maybe a teacher issue, which brings us to surprises. There's some things we can't talk about teachers and other things that is protected by law because of due process. So I've worked with some groups on this, and this is more, we dealt with like when a leader left. It was a time of turmoil, what's working well, what's not working well, creating an action plan for superintendents coming on board. This type of work does happen in the district now through the Superintendent's Advisory Council, Parent Advisory Council, other opportunities for folks with concerns to work directly with school and district leaders to address them. So that's two approaches to this. We have some recommendations for you based on the work that you've been doing. I'm gonna switch there. We have a strategic plan that's in a proposed stage, so it has 5 pillars. We received from feedback mainly on the safety one. So we thought we could focus in January with the tentative date of the 31st on that safety and mental health supports, which are seeing a conversation in our community based on just some sad things happening with the young people in our community. And then in April, digging into those indicators. As you get the strategic plan moving towards being finalized, how will you know? What indicators would the community tell you? So that's 2 suggestions for once in the winter, spring, and then in the fall, open-ended, not sure. And then another listening period probably in the winter. There'll be work underway about our buildings and other topics in the district, so we don't want to ask you to commit. But so those are some ideas, thoughts, and feedback on direction. Superintendent, anything you want to add?
Oh, no. How about bonds coming up, or what we're looking at and pulling the community on some of those things, like what do they want to see?
Yeah.
As far as our next step, I know we're looking at, I think Swan Falls, adding on to it. Do we want to just knock it all out? What does the community feel about that?
Yeah, there's a committee that's been seated who will be doing some preliminary work, and then there'll be time where we'll want feedback.
Definitely. I'm just saying
April-ish.
Maybe April, maybe
Yeah.
fall, whatever.
Yeah.
And I personally like a little of both. I like the big issue, I like the open-ended, but I think it's important if we're doing open-ended that we have a list like we do now on our agenda that says this is what open-ended means. Because I do want to hear what the community brings. So those are just some of the things I thought.
I like things to be brief. I really feel like patrons sometimes get overwhelmed with a lot of communication from the schools, from the district. And so I think if we can keep it brief and concise and more simple, it'll be more effective.
Yeah.
We used a model with the Superintendent's Advisory Council that worked really well last time, where we had district folks sitting with groups. So in this model, we envision you each with a group, ideally people from your zone, going through this process of on this pillar. Let's talk about it, and you would report out, and you'd have direct feedback from folks in your zone to share with the group.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens too, because having gone through the election, that was one of the number one things I heard was, are you listening? But now, how many people will actually come out? It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
You know,
We have
because-
pretty good participation in our parent advisory
Yes.
councils, you know, like at
Yes.
the district level and in our schools.
It'll
That's
be-
good.
Yeah, it'll be interesting just to see. But I think, again, as a board member, part of the board, I want to keep those open doors. And I want them to know we do listen. So,
Would you like us to go ahead and schedule something in January? So if we had maybe a time of, like, you know, the focus or the input we received on our strategic plan when we presented to you, probably the most feedback we had was around that, you know, mental health, you know, safety supports.
Inclusion.
And bring it, you know, we talked about bringing it back to the community. So kind of thought January might be a good time to do that. And have a study circle type of listening session. Or maybe do something like we've done with our district parent advisory council, the superintendent's council. So if we put something together and bring it forth to you with that.
Yeah,
we could
I'm
kind of,
open. How do you guys feel?
I think it's a good idea.
okay, so kind of keep these dates in mind. Great.
Thanks, Allison.
Yeah, I think we listed it as an action item, but I don't know if we need to do that or not.
Don't think so.
Okay, so, got it.
Okay, update on approach to growth, Assistant Superintendent Reinhardt.
Chairman Grant, members of the Board of Trustees, myself, Robbie Reno, Trustee Thomas, our legal counsel, the city's legal counsel, the mayor, several officials had a chance to get together to, again, try to sync us up to your frustration and to our frustration. We still felt out of sync, and there was also some pushback on our approach and the wording we're using on our approach to talk to developers about partnerships, and some question about how to do that. So I'm going to, Robbie is not on the agenda because he was at a planning and zoning commission just now, but Trustee Thomas is on it. I'll talk a little bit about the process of getting a development approved or denied, but I'll yield some time to Trustee Thomas to reflect on that meeting.
Okay. Oh, you want me to do it first?
Sure.
Okay, so I felt like it was a very beneficial meeting for us. There was so much, you can do this and you can't do this, going back and forth, and no one really was understanding what was going on. But to get all of us to sit down in a room and talk about it and have our legal counsels there to say, yes, that's right, no, that's wrong, yes, you can, no, you can't, and get the direction from them on how to proceed was invaluable. And I think that one of the other things that we decided to do that will be beneficial to all of us is to have a joint meeting with the city council and us and our respective legal counsel, and have them train us on this process and what can be done and what can't be done. I think it'll be beneficial to all of us, because then we'll all understand the process and we're all on the same page and we're starting all at the same starting point.
Thank you. Roughly speaking, a process to approve or deny residential or commercial in the city of Kuna follows these blue lines. There's a pre-application, there's a chance for agencies to comment, Planning and Zoning Commission, which is where Robbie Reno just returned from, and finally a city council hearing. We have placed our emphasis originally at their recommendation, but we've shifted, but originally the process was what you see above. We would attend early on, we would negotiate, talk with, try to get land, come back to you, go back to them, come back to you, write a letter or testify at planning and zoning, assume that testimony letter went to city council, and to various extents it did and it didn't. We have worked out, I think, a great partnership with the city of Kuna in crafting a new method, which is on the bottom. Significant to this is this piece. And so following the model of ACHD, IDT, we'll be doing a significant impact study that will be multiple pages that will go in at that point. That will be normally err on the side of restrictive. Mr. Reno and myself are taking half a day, the day we get back from New Year's, to work on that, refine that actual study even better. Then we negotiate. And I can say I had an hour and a half meeting today with developers on that. We'll continue to attend and engage at P&Z, and I will be at every city council meeting from now till we don't need to be anymore, and everything's settled and Kuna doesn't grow anymore. And all we're talking about is, I don't know what they talk about, but and then at some point, if the developer decides to enter into a partnership with us, we'll write any amendments to those letters along the process and enter those into the public record at that point. We've been assured that this letter will follow this plat or this development all the way through. And I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, would you mind explaining, like, there's some, we have a new process, but then we still have some developments that we were using the old process. So like, how are we distinguishing what we do between the new and the old?
Yes, thanks. Great question. We have, so at any given time, I'm just guessing now, we have probably 30 developments that are somewhere in that process. Some have gone dormant and are reemerging. Others have just continued on. So in the interim, we are entering a standardized letter to City Council before every meeting goes to public hearing. That's essentially a letter that says, if everything builds tomorrow, if all of a sudden all these houses are built, the letter says we cannot serve that population. They all build tomorrow. They don't all build tomorrow, but if they were, we can't serve that, and that we're seeking partnerships. So we have a generic letter we've crafted that will go to just to kind of as a catch-all to catch any of that, because they just all of a sudden those show up at some point in the process, and the agenda is published after the deadline for submittal for a development. So we have to get something in there immediately. And I'm checking in with planning and zoning. Jace Hellman's probably very annoyed with me every 2 days. What's on city council? What's on planning and zoning? What's on they have not developed a system yet for us to be notified. So I'm just peppering him with questions, because they just kind of show up again. So
I think what's beneficial too with the letters is that we get a letter in at the very beginning that's strong verbiage that says, barring that we get this, or this, we can't support this growth. Right. And then if the developers voluntarily help us, then we can add another letter, and there's no limit to how many letters we can add, and I think that's going to be beneficial for us in the end.
Joy mentioned something about a joint meeting. Is that something that's in the works, or is that just something we're just discussing at this point?
I think that's up to council. Trustee Thomas recommended it.
So it's kind of ball in their court type thing, or?
The mayor was very excited about doing it.
Okay.
And the attorneys both agreed that they would come and do that training for us. I think the benefit is bigger than not doing it. And we've had joint meetings before, and I think it would be beneficial for all of us to start from the same starting point.
So we're, Dave and I are trying to connect with the mayor this week, and so we'll bring that up to him again.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the right approach. I think we start from the position that these things are going to have an impact on our school system, and we're not sure that we can support it, and then they have to convince us as to why their development should be okay, and and what they're committed to do or what they're willing to do in order to to alleviate our concerns and the difficulties that it places us in. And I think the burden of proof should be on them to be able to, I think the default position should be that, we can't really support this unless we know what you're going to do to help us to be able to take care of this, so.
It's really interesting. The developers are really shocked that we're coming at it from a position of strength, and but once we spend some time with them, they get it, because other agencies do the same thing.
I mean, development is going to happen, and I'm not saying that we just say we're not ever going to support anything, but I do think that we start from the position that it's going to be a concern, it's going to be a problem for us, and then we work down from there as far as how those concerns are going to be taken care of. So
I just want them to understand that every time they approve development, and I'm not anti-development, but every time they approve it, we have, most of the time we have to pass bonds and levies to be able to pick up the pieces and move forward, and so we're increasing taxes, and I just want them to understand how that process works and to have that in their head for city council when they're approving them.
Well, I like to see us work more as a team. I mean, it's all about the community type of thing, and approach it from that standpoint too. But, yeah.
The city council constantly says that they cannot vote no unless they have a reason to by the fire district, us, or the police.
Okay.
So they're trying to get the three entities to
work together
to give them information.
So I think at one point we actually did reach out to, was it the fire department or something like that we were kind of spoken to about growth in the area.
Yeah.
But maybe that's another way of hitting this, would be to kind of see what their thoughts and feelings. I mean, I know that the fire district has tried to pass to get another station, and the community hasn't supported them in that. And so I'm guessing that they're feeling the growing pains a lot as well. So maybe it's something that we could kind of team up with them as well. So then it's 2 or possibly even 3 people saying, this is a bad idea. At least we need to slow it down. So.
I think, so the city or the fire district passed law that they are collecting impact fees. And so they have a decent amount of money that they've gotten over the last couple of years. I think it's been about 2 years. But if your fire district is not able to service 80% of the calls that are in the area, that's considered, I don't know what they call it.
Dangerous.
Yeah. Very risky.
Bad, very, very bad.
Not good.
But our fire district is, I don't know what the percentage is, but I know it's a lot less than 80%.
Oh, I see. Well, we just need to, have more incidences. At least on one day a month or something,
In our work, one of the things we notice is at this point, developers have to pay for environmental impact studies, and they have to pay for traffic studies at great expense. One of our noticings is that there's no requirement for developers to pay for education impact studies. We don't think there's such a thing as education impact studies.
But we paid for one years ago, right? 2016.
That's what
When we
That's
built
what we-
yeah.
So our work will be developing educational impact studies.
What was it, 2.5 kids
Yeah.
per
Yeah.
house
Yeah.
when they move in?
Yeah.
So I didn't know what the 0.5 stood for, but.
0.67.
Half a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, half a
Okay,
kid.
thank you. So moving on to new business. Let's see. Christy, Bruce, do you want to stand up? So, do I read this? Or do you?
Well, it's just a motion. Yeah, it's just, we have to validate the results of the
Okay.
election.
The Board of Trustees accepts the election results, and I hereby move that the board, hereby move that, this is written, that Christy Bruce is awarded or elected as trustee in Zone 3, and further move that the clerk provide the candidate a certificate of election.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Kim?
Do I need to stand?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Okay, so the Board of Trustees, you want to
Well, if I messed it up,
The-
read it.
The Board of Trustees accepts the election results, and I hereby move that the board declares Kimberly Nixon as elected as trustee in Zone 4, and further move that the clerk provide the candidate a certificate of election.
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Do I get a vote? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. Okay. Consider driver's education, Assistant Superintendent Beckentall.
Hello, Chairman Grant, members of the board. Last month, Mrs. Phillips came to the board, a delegation, and asked about using advanced opportunity monies for driver's ed. You asked us to do some research and come back this month with a possible proposal for that. And so first of all, I'd like you to know that Mrs. Phillips and I have worked closely on this. And we've gone through this presentation, as I've also gone through the presentation with Tammy Hansen, our driver's ed administrator, and with Angela Bauer, our advanced opportunities coordinator. And then 2 Mondays ago, Mrs. Phillips and I met. We were going to meet for an hour, and I think it ended up being a lot longer because we chatted about lots of different things besides this. So we just covered everything, yeah. Should we know we're spending Christmas, everything. Anyway, so what I have for you tonight is more about the advanced ops part of this, probably some pros, some cons, but things some parents need to know mainly about this. And then Almira's going to share the financial report that comes to the state. So it won't take too long, but I'll just go through this as quickly as you want me to. But this is important of how driver's education using opportunities funds works. In order to be eligible, you have to be passing 6 of 8 of your current classes. So you have to be a full-time student, 6 of 8. It has to be an overload class, and you have to submit their request first of all through advanced ops. So if you want to use advanced ops monies for driver's ed, that would go to like Angela Bauer. She would verify, yep, they're good to go. And then it would go to the driver, that list would go to our driver's ed administrator, Tammy Hansen, that they've been approved to use their advanced op money. So the list of drivers, okay, we got all that. If a student does not meet the requirement of passing 6 out of 8 class or has failed driver's ed, they can't use the funds to retake driver's ed. So that's important to know, and then they'd have to pay for the driver's ed to complete the course themselves, okay?
Can you tell us what an overload class is?
It's something outside of if you've got a full schedule, it has to be something that you can't fit in your schedule. It's an overload. It has to be taken outside of the school day. Driver's ed has to be taken outside of the school day. So overload, and you'll see a little bit more on this in a minute, but overload and dual credit, even though they're different, the advanced op monies, it's the same. They can use it for overload or dual credit. Okay? Is that?
And one more question. If
Yeah.
kids are taking seminary as one of their classes, would that disqualify them as having 8 classes because that's not a credit class? Right. And so if they're taking seminary, they can't use this money to pay for driver's ed. Is that?
Not necessarily.
Yes, no?
They have to take 6 of 8. They have to take 6 of 8.
Oh,
classes.
okay.
6 credit.
Seminary
Yeah,
just
6 credit, yeah.
When you said 6
Yeah.
of 8, I didn't know if they had to be in 8 classes that they were getting a grade from. That's what I was confused.
Yeah, so
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that answers one of my questions, because one of the things that I saw in here was that, it's only like a 6-week class or something
So
like
can I explain just a
Oh,
little
sure,
bit
yeah.
about that, if that would help? And so just so you know though too, and Mrs. Phillips and I did the same research with talking to some of the key people that have done this for a long time. And Caldwell has one of the best driver's ed programs. So we both talked to some of the same people. I talked to just a couple more people on my side. We both talked to Bill Cooper. We talked to Bill. Anyway, and then I talked to Scott Nelson, who's their advanced up, who's their Angeli Bauer. Then I talked to Anita Wilson, who's the principal at Caldwell High School, because she told me how they transcribed it on a student's transcript. And then I talked to April Burton, who is their financial manager, like, okay, how does it work in your budget? How does the money go here? So I talked to those folks. We've talked to the state people, Emily at the state. We've talked to Tammy Hansen, we've talked to Angela. So we've gotten a lot of input on this. And I think we've all come away with the same conclusions so far on where we think we can go with this. So with driver's ed, it's 60 hours is required to earn 1 credit. That's set by the state. It's 30 hours of in-class instruction, 6 hours of behind the wheel, then 6 hours of observation time. And then there's a journal part of it when you have your permit that you have to log, the driving time. And so this would require, like, in order to get the credit, a credit, you'd have to have 18 more hours to meet the 60 hours. And so then, like, Tammy could sign off on that, and if somebody needs that credit or transcribed it, she could do that for them. So they will not get their permit, they don't pass a course, they've met the 60 hours, the instructor will sign off, take it to the registrar, they can get the credit, it's added to their transcript. This credit doesn't count for college, it's a pass-fail, but it doesn't help you get to college. It's just
It'll help you drive to college.
It'll help you drive to college
Safely.
It'll help you drive safely and not with your parents having to drive you back and forth. You have to have an 80% or better, and I did clear that up, that's what the state requires. An out-of-district student wanting to take driver's ed in our district wouldn't be able to get the credit through our school district. We wouldn't transcribe that credit. They have to be fully enrolled, and they will not get their permit until they've completed the course. So if you want to go to the next slide, who can teach driver's ed? So only, sorry.
Just a real quick one. I mean, if we're short on driver's ed teachers anyway, is there any problem with us just saying that it's not available to out-of-district students?
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
I don't know that we have to offer it to.
And especially if we do offer it, use the advanced ops money, we're gonna have more kids wanting to take it. So I think
If
this.
it's an overload course, then this would be like it would be after hours, right?
Yeah, it's before school or after school or weekends or whatever they do there. Yeah,
Hopefully we
it's not during the school day.
Right.
Okay. And I think this was some confusion that Mrs. Phillips and I talked about. I think last year there was some misunderstanding, and we kind of talked about that. Like, it was an FTE that would be like, let's just say you have 65 teachers at the high school, and one of those was an FTE for driver's ed, but you needed more science or math. It's not an FTE that requires you to have a teacher on the high school campus. It's a course. It costs $440 to take for a driver's ed instructor to be certified. And I asked Tammy Hansen, I said, where do most of them go to get that credit? And it's through NNU offers, they said the best one. The next course is January, it goes January to April. We have posted on our website, drivers, the need for driver's ed instructors, but it's like everything else. I mean, it's there.
Since August.
Since August, we've had that. But the cost for us is like we pay Tammy Hansen took over as our administrator in August when her predecessor left and moved to Washington. So Tammy gets a stipend for that. This is how much we pay out for salaries. We have 3 instructors. We pay them $23 an hour. We have a supply budget. Right now we have 2 cars. We're trying to get 2 more. We're in the process of trying to get 2 more, which would let us get a couple more instructors, hire 2 if we could find them. And for the 2020-21 school year, we collected $46,000. And this is where I'm going to have Elmira show you the reimbursement form from the state and what that means. And that advanced ops is an option on the state form.
So maybe she's gonna answer this question, but those physical costs that we talked about, those will be reimbursed through this program?
Yeah, yes. So she's gonna show you what that means.
I can see from here results. Chairman, grant trustees, so this is an example of the form that we submitted last year. So, and this form is designed for districts that run the driver's ed program within the district. That means all instructors are employed by the district. So, for example, this form looks complicated, but the way it's designed, before I go into all the details, the way it's designed is to ensure that regardless of the program, whether it's driver's ed without advanced opportunities or a combination, at the end our cash flow is neutral. So $5 in, $5 out. So they just make sure we don't lose any funds or we don't gain any funds. So for example, the example from the prior year, they collect information on how many students were served, and carelessly if you scroll down a little bit. And then they pretty much ask us, well, what was your overall expense? That means hourly wages, and miscellaneous costs, and this is, hopefully I can answer your questions. This is everything other than salaries and benefits. We can include our administrative fees, some curriculum materials, or if the car breaks down, so everything can be included. There are a few exemptions there. I think at the most would be $400 or $500 a year, but everything is allowed to be included. And then down, carelessly if you scroll down below, and then they ask, well, how much did you collect? So it shows $200 because at that time we collected $200. Right now the fee is a little bit higher. And then they compare revenue versus expenses. And as you can see in this example, if we collected less in fees and we spend more, they will cover the difference. They could have paid us $22,000, but they would pay only $12 because that's the difference. So that's how they make sure that we don't profit or we don't lose any funds. So so this is our current program without any advanced opportunities. But there is a cell over here. So if we are to opt in into advanced opportunities program, then the state will adjust, assuming everything is housed in here, the state will adjust this template and then they will ask me, all right, how much did you collect in fees and how much did we reimburse you for advanced opportunities through a different bucket of money? And then if we still, if our expenses still exceed our revenues, for example, because we have to increase salaries, we have to purchase vehicles, they'll still cover the difference. If for some reason we profited, then they will reach out to us and they will ask us either to reduce a fee or increase expenses. So that's kind of an overall process. Kind of our reconciliation with the state, they're just gonna make sure that everything balances at the end.
So we can, so right now, like Elvira said, this year we charged $230 for, but if we're using advanced ops, the highest amount we can charge is $225. And then that's what we would get in reimbursed for. And we couldn't charge more because it's for a credit, so we can't charge more than that if we're gonna do that. Just
So we'll have to eat the $5 per student?
I think it's the $225 and then, with the expenses and stuff, like it said, we won't lose, but we don't gain. It'll wash.
It'll wash out, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
If we lose money, then they'll.
Yeah.
So, if you've got students that are, I mean, Idaho, you are able to drive young. So how are you gonna prioritize? If you only have a certain amount of spots available for driver's ed, but you've got, an extra 50 kids, but they're 14-and-a-half-year-olds. Are you gonna only allow this for sophomores or something like that, or are you just gonna open it to whoever, first come, first served kind of thing?
Well, I think those are some things we still have to work through because, I mean, this wouldn't happen for probably not even until next summer. And right now, it's like, I get probably the kids who can pay, there's a wait list of kids who want to take driver's ed right now. So for us, the wait in district right now, it's just gonna take us some time to figure out like how we would do that with the number of vehicles we have, the number of instructors we have. And then if there's some other options that we can look at. But right now, I think the focus was like, can we use advanced ops? Because that was kind of the mission to look at, can we use advanced ops for driver's ed? And so that's what we kind of wanted to show you, that it's possible. It is possible. But I wanted to also, if you don't have any more questions on this, just some understanding that, like Mrs. Phillips and I talked about, for parents to understand, like, if you use advanced ops or money for overload or dual credit, understand that, so let's go, and I'll show you, okay? So we've gotten there. Okay. So this is just about, okay, so is that it? The district is already, so we have a separate account for driver's ed. It's not general fund money out of our budget at all. The money comes from either advanced ops or kids paying for driver's ed. So all the expenses are there. We don't pay for anything out of our own money, out of the general budget. So this talks about it, just like I just said, 225 is the max that advanced ops will cover. And if they qualify, then we wouldn't, that's that $5 or whatever, we couldn't do that. The advanced money for a student plus the reimbursement from the state all goes directly into the driver's ed account. And then this is what the driver's ed account pays for. Our administrator, the salaries, maintenance and gas, leasing and purchasing of vehicles, and insurance is through the district on all of our vehicles. Okay, so I think I talked about this a little bit. We have 3 instructors. The next course through NNU runs January to 2022. If we could get some more instructors, that'd be fabulous.
And we reimburse the teachers?
We would do that, yeah, we would do that. We could get them, we would happily reimburse them.
Where does that money come?
That would probably come out of the
State thing.
out of the reimbursements for expenses.
Okay.
So what costs us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, don't we give so much per credit for teachers if they wanted to take? It's not a credited course then? Okay, gotcha.
It's just a certification.
I just saw that. It's just a
Different
certification, it's not credit.
Yeah. So then the new law, advanced ops update as of July talks about the overload and due credit. That's really just the law there. So if you want to go on, Tammy. So this is what's important. I think mainly, and Mrs. Phillips and I talked about this, for parents to understand. And this is where Angela talked about that. If a student fails to earn credit for a dual credit course, then they have to pay for their next course themselves before they can take another class. And they can't pay to retake the class that they failed. They're gonna have to pay for that. So you just wanna be careful so somebody doesn't start yelling at us that, well, I can pay for another. No, you can't. If you fail one, you have to pay for another one before you can use your advanced ops money.
That seems like it would be pretty easy for people to grasp, though.
Yeah, but it's just important, I think, to know. And then same with the overload. It doesn't matter if it's overload or dual credit, it's the same thing. And also the same thing with the workforce training course. They'll have to pay for the next class if they failed that workforce. Okay, if you want to go on, this is something Angela put together. I think it might help parents too. Has a student paid for another dual credit or overload or completed one dual credit? If yes, then you can use your advanced stop. If no, then that's how it works for overload or dual credit. So here's some facts, and we would post this too on our website. Angela Lee has all this, so she's happy to talk to anybody. When is a course considered unsuccessful? Unsuccessful course attempts are considered when a student fails to earn credit in which a grade is earned and paid for by advanced ops. It's typically a withdrawal from a course or a fail. Does it impact? It could, yes, because it goes to the prior year. So if you failed one in the spring of 2022, you'd have to pay for your first class in the fall of 2022. A student can pay for and earn credit to be reinstated for future advanced ops funding. The course costs a number of credits are not needed to consider it. It can be whatever the next course is you want to take. It doesn't have to be the same dollar amount or something. It just can be the course. So a student must pay for and successfully earn credit or complete one like course before the State Department may pay any future reimbursement for courses. The student will need to pay for and earn credit of only one course or complete one like course before being allowed to use advanced ops for additional courses. And again, this is all stuff Angela Lee would walk any student through and make sure if they wanted to use their money for driver's ed, that she would clear that all up. She would look at all that, make sure it was clear and they're good to go. Tammy gets that list. And that's just kind of the process of what it means. So it's doable. And Mrs. Phillips and I have been talking the last 2 days. There's some things that in the new year, some unanswered questions that we still want to work through. You're just like this, we just didn't have enough time to put anything else on our high school or ask them for anything or put any pressure on our program. So we said in the new year, we would circle back and work through some other pieces of it. But you had asked if it is doable, it is doable. And if I would stand for any other questions.
Kim, tonight it's listed as an action item. Is there some action that you need us to take?
If you would want to agree that we can use advanced ops money for driver's ed, yes. And it's not gonna start like in January. Again, we've got to work through the steps of what that would mean. It's possible that maybe this summer, by that time, and if we had our vehicles and more drivers and we have some other things we want to work through. But we had talked that maybe it wouldn't be till next fall, but maybe this summer, we'll see.
Do you have to be a teacher to be certified?
So take the class.
You have
Or
to
you
take the
can't be a
course.
port?
You're thinking about adding to your job.
With all your free time.
I can tell you this, you probably know that too, but after having 3 kids who went through driver's ed, my husband and I fought for the back seat on the highway drive. Like, I'm not sitting in the front seat with my child. I would lock the door, so he had to do it, so.
It takes
I
a
could not be-
special.
It does, it takes a
zen
special
kind of a
person.
person.
And I'm telling you, Tammy, yeah. Yeah. So
Well, I think that Mrs. Phillips is volunteering.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've already done it several
Yeah.
times. You've got this.
I tell you, I just offer Tammy candy every day. She comes in to warm up because I'm like, God bless you, I cannot do this, but she's amazing. So I guess that would be that it is doable. You've seen the form from the state. It is on the state form. And it is, you know, it'll help parents. And that's one of the main goals that Mrs. Phillips talked about. It will help families.
Help kids.
It'll help kids.
What we learned though is that while your kids have a permit, they're under your insurance and you don't have to pay extra. As soon as they get their license, you have to sell a kidney.
Yes, I know.
So I've lost one, Ray's next.
Yeah.
You know, with Aubrey, it'll be Ray's
I've
kidneys.
been there, done that. So that would be, if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
No, but I just want to say thank you to you and to Mrs. Phillips for all the research
Yeah,
that you've done. And I think the bottom line is it really is going to help kids. events. I think
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Sally, do you have a motion?
Oh, yes. I move that we approve using the advanced opportunity monies to pay for driver's ed instruction.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so the memorandum of understanding with the Boys and Girls Club, Superintendent Johnson.
Chairman Grant and trustees, as you know, the Boys and Girls Club has been using the 4th Street Gym property for, since COVID, as another way to help our community and help our families for after school and before school care. During our brief stint with an every other day schedule last September, they also provided care for families on the opposite day and homework club and those kind of things. They have recently received a pretty sizable grant for playground equipment and landscape and that sort of thing. And they want to invest that grant at, I would say it's the west side of the building that's Weed Patch and Goat Head Central, and terrible pieces of concrete and all of that at the 4th Street Gym. They would like to invest that grant in our property. And they, in order to do that, they would ask if we would consider allowing them to continue to use the facility for 5 years. So the memorandum of understanding would be an agreement between the school district, the board, and the Kuna Boys and Girls Club to use the facility. Our attorney, the district's attorney, has reviewed it and felt like there was enough of a reasonable escape clause if there was some emergency that we needed to sell the property or use it for something else. So that memorandum of understanding is before you. Thank you.
We have a motion.
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding with the Boys and Girls Club
We have
for
a
use of
second.
the 4th Street Gym.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
The order.
I have something, Katie.
Okay.
So we all got an email, and I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at that earlier today from ISBA. They're just informing us that Attorney General Lawrence Fosden is going to do his open meeting law discussion. And it's gonna be on January 5th. It's via Zoom, and the link is in the email. So I just wanted to make sure everybody saw that and knew that was there.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Cynthia, I realized I didn't see my last name on that. And I didn't know. I'm like,
No, I was
really-
Yeah, I know.
You have to write down that.
I'm gonna go.